Insanity hits again in California. Marietta Police Department covers suspects' faces with Lego heads.
Amazing.
In booking photos and mugshots posted online. Welcome to Asmith Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me as always is my loving husband, Barrett McNabb.
Hi, everybody.
Now, check this out.
Well, this is funny. This is funny. But you know, we have that there's a California bill that says that posting mugshots are unflattering. And
have you seen a driver's license photo? Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly. It's unflattering and it's not fair. And so California Senator Evan Campbell claimed that his bill is going to be making sure, which did pass, is going to be making sure that the privacy of suspected and convicted criminals is not going to be utilized at their normal face, but they're going to be covered up in some way. Now, a local police department had decided to go ahead and lean forward and have a little fun with
check
the
out the
blocking it.
Shrek one.
Yeah, that's
I love that one.
That's absolutely hilarious. So instead of just blurring out the images, the police department had a little fun. They're in compliance with the law that was passed, but still, it made us laugh, and we wanted to make sure we brought this to you. But you know, it comes down to our security and safety of the public to not be able to see the faces of who the criminals are in your area. Is that a cause of concern?
Well, they're more concerned about shaming and humiliating and, there's not really a public safety purpose. I'm sorry. Shame is a useful tool.
Sure is.
I mean, whether it's parenting, you got the teenage girl wearing the booty shorts and the dad shows up at the school in the booty shorts like, don't I look cute like this? Or ask any drill instructor, like, hey, do you ever make people do extra push-ups to shame them in front of all the other people? Like, hello, you got to do your job. And the football coaches, like,
right.
Come on, how many of you have played football, not showed up for practice on time, or you messed up a drill and your football coach made you do extra push-ups, and guess what? You try not to do it again. It works.
It does work. And in fact, there's been a number of judges, and this was in the news a number of years ago, that were trying to keep people out of jail, but still punish them for their offenses. And there was a judge, and I haven't done research because it just entered my mind, but who would make shoplifting suspects stand outside of Walmart with a sign wrapped around their neck for an X amount of time that says, "I stole from this store." And the person had to do that in front of Walmart in lieu of going to jail. And so I see this, as an inventive shaming tactic, because the person had to stand there. They had to have their face uncovered, and didn't have their name and social security number or anything on the sign. But it did have the little rope that goes around your neck and a big placard that was on the front and back and said, "I stole from this Walmart." And I thought that was very inventive of a use of shame in order to prevent further incidences like this.
Well, and also it's far more effective than not punishing someone.
Sure.
But if you don't want to be shamed, don't do the crime.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing is it turns out that your interactions with the police go down drastically if you don't commit crime. Just to throw that out there, it absolutely just drastically reduction in police interactions if you do not commit crime.
Yeah. Well, the bill also says that the police department must use the suspect's pronouns. Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. If a guy says, I go by she, her, and it's really a dude, and the description out to the public is a she, her, people are going to be looking for an actual female.
Right.
With XX chromosomes. And so, I'm sorry, I prioritize public safety over a criminal's feelings.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kimberly. I mean, when you're looking at a suspect at large, okay, so somebody has committed a crime, they've gotten a no bail, which is entirely within the realm of possibility in California or New York. They've gotten no bail, and so they're released on their own recognizance, and they decide to skip their court dates, and they're running around causing havoc. I mean, if the police department wants help and assistance in finding the suspect, having the Lego head guy, we're looking for this person, and all of a sudden people are going to the Lego movie and sending in clips from the Lego movie of Lego Batman, to say, well, let's let Lego Batman find these guys. Anyway, the point is you need to be able to have information. And by putting out the information of the description and the looks and the correct pronouns of the suspect so that the public can make an informed ability to call in tips to the police department in order to capture the suspect is necessary.
Well, there are some people commenting online justifying this.
Okay.
They go, oh, one day it may happen to you. You may be a suspect and you wouldn't want your picture out there. Okay, I see some of the pictures where they're using the Lego heads,
right.
And they're not at church. They're on the streets. They're wearing thuggish clothes. The person sitting next to them in handcuffs is also wearing thuggish clothes. I had a theory. Let's see if this makes sense. If you didn't want to get in trouble in high school, you stayed away from people who cause trouble.
Yep.
Like, that's one of the reasons why I worked so much in high school, is so that I wouldn't be sucked in. Like, I'm sorry, but troublemakers seem to attract trouble.
Right.
And if the police do a swipe, and they round up everybody, they're taking you with them. They don't care if you're actually guilty. You're going to at least take a few-hour trip downtown.
Guilty by association.
Yeah. So, sorry, you chose your friends poorly.
Right. Now, I have an interesting thing. What about all of those beautiful mugshots that people got modeling contracts out of? I mean, there are. Are you going to miss out?
Or something?
Are you going to miss out? I'll put these pictures up here, but these guys went viral with their mugshots and got modeling contracts. How many modeling contracts are people going to miss out on if they have the Lego head instead?
I'd say that's definitely the exception.
I know. I just brought that up because there were people that look at these mugshots and stuff. Gets people going viral.
Could be anything, but another defense of this law is it could humiliate the suspects' families. I'm sorry, but your families need to know what you're up to. I mean, come on, whatever happened to family honor? Let's go by the Japanese example, like family honor. I mean, hey, whatever it takes to get your kids to act straight, do it.
Right, exactly. I mean, your mom, seeing your face plastered for negative connotations. Obviously, that's going to make her embarrassed if she goes to church group and stuff like that. She's it's going to be an irritation for her and an embarrassment for her as well.
Well, I remember, I think it was the 2020 BLM riots. There was a kid out there, and he was, beating on cop cars, setting things on fire, whatever, with, all the others. And there was a mom that came out there, and she started whipping his butt. And I was cheering. I'm like, yes, go get her. Go get him. Go get him.
That's hysterical.
It was awesome. So now there are exceptions to this law. So, okay. So let's hear them out. For example, Mountain View PD says it will honor public records request, as this is not affected by the new law.
So like a FOIA request.
Yeah, so at least there's that. And then if there is a public safety threat, then that is also an exception.
Okay, so that goes to what I was saying earlier. If there's there's a suspect that's on the run and you need to get an accurate description, hey, we're looking for this person, armed and dangerous, don't engage, and contact the police at this number. Okay, that makes a lot of sense then.
But, hiding people's suspects' identity, I just feel like that's a little bit of a slippery slope to, how you have the sexual predator registries.
Right, yep.
I feel like that's a slippery slope to getting rid of that.
Yeah. Because I've never looked it up myself, but I guess they have mugshots of the people.
Well, I looked it up when we lived in South Carolina, and it just said, now it was like a really tight circle, but like, I mean, like within a block, like how many people in the registry lived nearby. I don't think I've looked it up here.
Okay.
So I think it may depend on
but
the
I would
state
imagine
whether or
it's
not
got
there's
your
a name and
and
address.
who the person looks like. I mean,
I didn't see that. So
okay. So,
but I would imagine some states do.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, we saw this. It made us laugh because we have children, and they're beyond fans of the Lego Movie series, and to see the Lego heads, as we were searching for news topics, this made us stop and say, "What?" and so we wanted to bring it to you. So thank you so much for watching Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So how do you get your news? Me, I like to read and form my own opinions. Kimberly, you like to listen to podcasts and to be able to multitask. And neither's right or wrong. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is my beautiful wife, Kimberly McNabb. And we're here to talk about the benefits and how we like to consume our news and our information, and just kind of have a pro versus con. Neither one is bad. Neither one is good or better than the other.
As long as you're informed.
As long as you're informed, yeah. So, Kimberly, what do you like about listening to podcasts?
So I really enjoy podcasts. I run every day, and so some people like to run listening to audiobooks. Me, I don't know. I can't do it. But I like listening to podcasts. It allows me to multitask, whether it's doing grocery shopping or cleaning the house or running or whatnot. And then also I feel like when you're watching the news or reading the news, it's fairly short.
Okay.
Especially watching it, it's like a 5-minute bit at most, and then they move on to the next topic, and they're kind of forced along by three honchos up. Whereas podcasts, they can do a deeper dive. Like a PBD podcast is 3 hours long. Now they will cover a couple of topics, but it's not that many topics in a 3-hour episode.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. So for me, I did it. I'd have to say I continue to read my news out of habit. Is a big one for me. So I've always been a huge consumer of information. And as I progressed in my career in the Army and became a foreign area officer, reading intelligence reports became a major part of my job as well. So prior to that, I was always reading the USA Today. In fact, they got my quarter for many, many years, and then it went up to 50 cents and then $1. And I continued to purchase the USA Today. When the iPad came out, I was able to pay for my iPad just for the purpose of no longer purchasing USA Today newspapers and reading it in the app instead. And
because you're an environmentalist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what just that? But I paid for it, so it was $365. That eventually I paid it off in 1 year, and then it earned money for me because I stopped buying the newspaper. But I would have to read the Defense Intelligence Agency's Early Bird, and the Early Bird is no longer done by the DIA on the secret internet, or the SIPR, but it had classified secret level documents that was basically a one-pager that had little teeny paragraphs and snippets of major news items that had occurred while you were sleeping. And so it would come out like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you could log onto your SIPR account and print it out and have it, and then you obviously need to destroy it. But the DIA no longer does that anymore, and it was picked up by the Military Times. And so the Military Times is a DoD, independent DoD publication. They have the Army Times, the Navy Times, the Air Force Times, and stuff like that as well. But the Military Times took it over. Now, it's obviously moved into a non-classified version, but still it gives me snippets of what's going on in the military, and it has a breakdown of which theater we're talking about, what continent, what branch of service. And so I read those. And then I like to hear different opinions. And what I like to do is I read Fox News. I read MSNBC News. I read NBC News. I read CNN. I read BBC. I speak French, and so I'll go on France 24 and look at the articles in French. I'll read Al Jazeera and look for commonality in the articles, and I like to make my own decisions on what it is that I think is going on. And so I like to have all kinds of points of view, and then I get to make the decision. And then the other thing that I like is I get to choose the articles that I want to read. As far as I'm concerned, if you listen to a podcast, they've already chosen the articles that they're going to talk about.
Yeah, PBD, he does a good variety of topics, definitely covers the political, some of the cultural. Put in girl stereotype, not as interested in the sports stuff. So I will fast forward, or if I see that's going to be the rest of the episode, because they'll typically list the topics that they're going to cover in the episode description.
You do get to choose.
Yeah, I mean, not as precisely as pulling up a web page. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, I understand that point. Now, one reason why I don't like reading the news, I feel like everyone's a journalist major, and I want to hear from the experts, and I don't mean the COVID experts Ted Cruz's The Verdict podcast. He's actually on the ground in the Senate. He's not a journalist on the ground. He's an actual senator on the ground, and he provides excellent background on the significance of something and why they're doing it. And if something was all Democrat, all Republican voted, right after October 7th, there was a bill, single issue bill, helping Israel, and every Democrat voted against it, and every Republican voted for it. And I'm like, hey, I have not heard that anywhere else.
Right.
So I like that. And then there's the Ruthless podcast. Josh Holmes used to be McConnell's chief of staff.
Okay.
So I find that very insightful, his angles. And also, you get different angles, not just the person writing the bit. Like Megyn Kelly she has a ton of guests, and she actually has some Democrats on there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely there is a value add to the podcast, and I liked what you said is that you get to look at the description and see, hey, this podcaster is talking about this. I'm not as interested in that. This podcaster is talking about this, and I am interested in that. So that's similar to being able to choose the articles that you want to consume. I definitely see the validity of having subject matter experts talking about something. It's having the Ruthless podcast and having people that have been inside the Beltway and have been
and they get a lot of congressmen.
Yeah, congressional aides and stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity to talk and get the ground's truth from the leaders who matter. And from the representatives who matter, and that's definitely can't be underrated at all. Being able to see how sausage is being made with the Ted Cruz podcast, that's pretty cool. Because a lot of times, people just get the end result, but by seeing how the sausage is actually made and getting behind the scenes is clearly a value add. Some of the advantage that I would say that I have is in the various jobs that I've had with high-level security clearances and having to consume reports and things like that, I have a very wide breadth of internal knowledge already. And so I know most often context that's behind whatever it is.
Yeah, see, I don't, and the podcasters oftentimes will provide at least just enough for me to appreciate it.
Sure.
Whereas sometimes I'll read an article, I'm like, but I don't get it. Why do I care? So, and also, they spend a lot more time talking about it from various angles.
Sure.
Like the PBD podcast, they call it the home team. I think it's 4 guys. So, even if they all vote the same, which I think there's one that doesn't, you're going to have at least a little variety of opinion, versus a news article, it's just typically one person writing it. But
that's why I go to multiple sources for the same subject or the same story, to see how the liberals are taking it, how the conservatives are taking it, how BBC is saying water is wet and the sky is blue, and moving on to the next story in their dry way.
Well, also on a more, basic level, if I'm watching the news, we don't have cable at our house. And so the kids are pretty spoiled and getting to watch stuff straight from iTunes or, whatever, and it's all commercial free. And, we pay extra for commercial free stuff. And then we go visit relatives in Georgia and they do have cable, or if we're in a hotel room, and all the commercials. And I'm trying to tell them, well, when I was a kid, we had to watch the commercials, but inside I'm like, it wasn't this bad.
It does seem like it's gotten a lot worse. In fact, even when you're on YouTube and you're looking, and there'll be a skippable ad. If you don't hit skip right away, it'll say like 3 seconds, but then all of a sudden it changes to like 90. And sometimes they mean 90 seconds, and sometimes they mean 90 minutes for a commercial, and it'll tick down. Now you can skip those, but still 90 minutes of commercials while you're watching a YouTube video that's only 15 minutes long.
Oh God, that's awful. But another thing I like about podcasts, I feel like it's from more real people.
Okay, that's fair.
You have people at CNN or MSNBC or even Fox. Some of these figureheads, they're kind of in these ivory towers. They don't have to get out amongst the riffraff. The last time they made $45,000 was like 50 years ago. And, so I like the idea of getting it from real people who can still kind of look at things the same way that I do. Whereas if you're in an ivory tower for 50 years, you have people doing the grocery shopping for you. What do you care? What do you care what crime is like? What do you care what the grocery prices are? It doesn't bother you because it's not in your face.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you were saying before we started recording that it's sometimes there is a difference in tone, or a perceived tone that you have to pick up in an actual text versus the tone when somebody's actually speaking, and have different enunciations.
Well, I think everybody, especially if you've been in a relationship, or just talking with a coworker, actually, you send someone a text and they get mad.
Right.
You don't know why. It's because text can read like much harsher than hearing actual speech or audio.
I think that's why emojis were invented, to be able to say this is actually a happy. What are you doing?
Well, we remember having to do the colon, semicolon, all that. So yeah, I like being able to hear it, or if I do have time to watch the YouTube version of it, actually see it. And so I see what they're actually getting at.
Right. Now, for us, when we have full-time jobs, and we are doing this YouTube channel or a podcast as a side gig, we definitely are growing, and we're monetized, and we want to turn it into a full-time job.
Yeah, and we're not owned by a network, so
we're definitely not
it's
owned.
Actually our opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Not owned by a network. We're not sponsored by anybody, and so, but we have very limited time. In fact, Grandma is currently watching the kids right now, because we have very small children, and it's hard to get away to actually do the film. So we have very limited time. So we have to be very judicious in which articles that we're going to be talking about, because we just don't have the ability to publish a video per day.
Right.
And be so current with the news. So we have to.
And it's very frustrating because there are things like, I want to talk about this, but
Exactly.
everyone else in the world will have talked about it for a week before we get to it.
Right. Absolutely. Now the thing is oftentimes in an instance like that, I'll say, well, Kimberly, we have a different opinion of something because I have experience in the Middle East, and I think so-and-so got it wrong. And so we do have a way to differentiate ourselves. But still, we are a two-person show, so we're doing all of the producer level of researching the topics that we want to do and looking at multiple sites and gathering data so that we can provide you with excellent content. But then on the tail end as well, all the filming is done by us, all the editing is done by me. And so I'm really not have the ability to listen to podcasts because I have to listen to how the audio goes. And as I'm learning how to be a better editor, some of my heroes on the internet that are professional editors that teach how to do editing, I've noticed that they've started making mistakes and they're having the wrong words on the wrong of video, the wrong audio on the wrong video track. So the person's speaking and mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out. And about 13 seconds later, the sound is coming out. And I'm like, oh man, I don't feel as bad because they made a mistake. It's okay for me to make a mistake as well. We did a film of RFK and the State of the Union address, and I was editing it and I encoded it and I got it out, and all of a sudden I realized that out of the 25 to 30 minute video, 4 minutes of us talking got cut out. And so I was like, no, this is really good part. And I tried to re-encode it and it wasn't working. I finally figured out that our hard drive, which holds 8 terabytes worth of data, is full. And so I need to go get another hard drive before I can fix that RFK video. And I think you guys are really enjoying it. It'll be coming out on soon. And so we're just this husband and wife team. So I think you've seen some of the podcasts professionally that make mistakes as well.
Oh, yes. So a common one is, especially towards the end of an episode, they'll say something and then they'll move on a little bit to a slightly different topic. And then all of a sudden they're repeating something from 30, 60 seconds earlier. And then it's the end of the episode. I'm like,
right.
There was no conclusion to this episode. What? So, and I'm talking about people who've been doing it 3 to 10 years. So,
right.
You should give yourself a, clap.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I'm learning. It's always interesting to learn a new skill. I think I watched about 200 to 300 YouTube videos on video editing on how to do it because I didn't want to buy somebody's $900 course. To learn how to do it. I'm a pretty smart individual, and I kind of figured it out myself. And I'm continuing to add to my toolkit. But it's a fun deal, and so we have a limited amount of time, and so when we cherry pick the news articles we think you'll find interested in, and the fact that we can speak intelligently about it is how we bring that stuff to you. So if you do have a choice of listening to podcasts to get your information, your news, and or read, I hope you choose a podcast, and I hope you choose Azimuth Podcast to get your news. So thanks so much for watching, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So I've been following politics for a great number of years, and I'm not sure if I've ever seen a court case yo-yo up and down so much as Texas's SB4. It has just been an absolute ride, so let's talk about it. Welcome to Azimuth Podcast. My name is Barrett McNabb, and with me is my beautiful wife, as always, Kimberly McNabb. So SB4 was passed in September of 2023, and it allows Texas law enforcement officers to arrest, detain, and deport illegal immigrants as they're coming from Mexico into the state of Texas. Now, this is clearly at odds with the Biden administration's interpretation of the Constitution. But Texas used a very interesting portion of the Constitution that says that states can enforce their own borders if there is an invasion of their territory. And the governor, Greg Abbott of the state of Texas, has declared that this is an invasion of people coming across the border, and that is why that they have felt that their law would be able to pass muster. Now, it was supposed to go into effect in March of this year, 2024, and it just kind of has been this yo-yo as it's bouncing around the federal court system.
Yep. Well, I feel sorry for the Border Patrol because they probably need with hourly updates. Like, okay, what's the law this hour? What's the law this hour? Who's saying what?
Right. I mean, it has obviously caused a lot of confusion. But before the law went into effect, a Austin federal judge struck down the law and said it couldn't go into effect. Texas obviously immediately appealed to the Fifth Circuit of Appeals, and they mirrored the federal judge and said, look, the law can't go into effect while the court is looking and doing adjudication and oral arguments and things like that through the Fifth Circuit appeals. So the state of Texas appealed up to the Supreme Court. And again, this is interesting. The Supreme Court said, hey, we're staying the law, so it can't go into effect until we do further review. And I remember I read that and I was like, damn you, Supreme Court. And then in 24 hours, I thought I was reading a mistake.
I did too. I was like, what did they say? I thought it was different.
Yeah, literally in 24 hours, the Supreme Court says, okay, Texas, you can enforce, your law can go into effect. You can enforce your law while the case is being adjudicated in the Fifth Circuit of Court of Appeals. And so Texas said, great. And I couldn't believe it. I've never seen
such a quick turnaround
of yo-yos, going around. And so immediately the Fifth Circuit Court says the law is suspended while it's going through adjudication in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the governor, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, said, psych, Texas is going to go ahead and enforce the law. And I do not blame him. I think he is in the right because the Fifth Circuit's boss, the Supreme Court, said the law could go in effect while the Fifth Circuit is having their legal process going on. And for the Fifth Circuit to say, nah, Supreme Court, we're going ahead and ignore you, and the law is suspended while it's going on. Man, Texas just said, look, I just asked your parents, and your parents said that it's good to go. I mean, I don't see how the Fifth Circuit would be able to enforce any negative consequences when the Supreme Court has already ruled in their favor. Now that is not to say that after the Fifth Circuit reviews the law and they say, no, it's unconstitutional, and it goes up to the Supreme Court, through their formal process and oral arguments and things like that, could say, yeah, you're right, it is unconstitutional. That's fine. But right now, the Supreme Court says that Texas can enforce the law and start arresting people and deporting people. And I think this is just amazing. I've never seen just a beanbag get kicked around so many times and have so many different rulings.
Well, eventually, the beans are going to spill everywhere.
Yeah, well, eventually the bag's going to break open. But to your point, I cannot imagine being a law officer, a peace officer in the state of Texas, whether it's the Department of Public Safety, which is the equivalent of the state troopers that a lot of states have. The Texas Rangers is a subset of the Texas Department of Public Safety. You've got sheriffs, you've got county sheriffs, you've got city police departments, and you got federal agents that are there, as well as Border Patrol, which are also federal agents. And there is so much confusion.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the immigrants are going to take advantage, like, okay, because they pay attention more to us than we do them. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. And so they know what's going on. They listen to radio, probably podcasts, or read the news. They have
Right.
their little cell phones. And so I imagine that's why we're seeing waves like we are, like
Yeah.
yesterday.
I could not believe this. You are absolutely 100% right. In the confusion of what's going on, the illegal immigrants are finding seams where they can, and they are absolutely utilizing this confusion to their advantage.
Yeah, just a stampede.
Yeah, and just absolutely incredible on that. And so let's just take a quick look at this video. So we can see that migrants are ripping the fencing down. The soldiers are armed. I want to point out the person on the far left. You're going to see his arm get jerked down. That's somebody grabbing the barrel right there, the barrel of his rifle. And then they force their way through. And you can see they're all yelling asylum, asylum. But you've got that NCO, having a special greeting for them as they run up to the gate, and it's "Get the F back."
Yeah.
It says that a couple of times.
Well, one thing I noticed, maybe one or two out of, I think articles said 100 people. So 1 or 2% of the people are women, 0 children.
Right.
In that picture?
Right, in that picture. You're absolutely right. And so I just want to, as a special caller, you want to talk about self-control. Self-control.
Yeah.
A standard police officer, if you grabbed the barrel of their gun or you grabbed their sidearm while it's holstered or something like that, you're getting shot.
And rightly so, because, I mean, what else can you assume that other than they're going to try to kill you? And there's no way if someone grabbed my gun would I not be able to shoot him. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's you right here in front of me, and then like 100 people behind you, all trying to stampede us. It's you or me.
Right. But the discipline of that Texas National Guardsman, because you can see that the arm was jerked down and the person obviously had their hand on their weapon, and that is, the arm is not being touched. That means somebody grabbed the barrel and pulled the barrel to try and dislodge that firearm, which looked like an M4 carbine, from that Texas National Guardsman, and the National Guardsman maintained his discipline and did not fire. And I'm pretty sure, I don't have an exact copy of the rules of engagement that Governor Abbott has put out, but I'm sure that would have been a justified offense if the person is taking the firearm.
The other guardsmen around him, they didn't
Yep.
react either. I mean, typically if you see someone you work with or your buddy get attacked like that, it would be tempting to aim.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it definitely would be. And, a lesser person would just rotate that safety switch from safe to semi and start going to town, but that did not happen, which just leads me to believe that the NCOs and officers of this particular unit are doing an amazing job of force de-escalation. Even though they were overrun, their lives would have been over had they started firing. But I personally think it would have been justified, especially since what would have happened had an illegal immigrant was able to secure and grab that M4 carbine.
Well, I feel like the more incidences like this we have, I feel like that's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, the confusion that's going on is hugely hamstringing the ability for the United States to protect itself.
I think one idea, people like Governor DeSantis, ships people to Martha's Vineyard. He says that he plans on intersecting any Haitians trying to come to Florida and sending them to Martha's Vineyard. I fully agree with that.
Right.
Just don't announce it before it happens. The element of surprise. But maybe Governor Abbott could round some up and ship them to be outside of the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
I don't know how legal that is, but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying put them in the building, just right outside.
yeah, well, I mean, one of the big things is that the federal government is saying that if Texas starts deporting people, that it will hurt international relations that the federal government has with other countries. So Mexico has straight up said, if Texas starts trying to send people back into Mexico, Mexico is not going to let that happen. And so then it becomes a problem. And when there's a problem, mistakes get made. And when mistakes get made, people get shot usually. And
Right.
so I'm trying to figure out what this is going to do. Is there a compromise that can get done? But Texas mimicked the federal law in its law so that it mirrored each other and nested very well. And that's one of the reasons why the Supreme Court, I think, let the law go, because it does mimic the immigration law that the United States has. And Texas Governor Abbott has said that this, utilizing the Constitution, it says that states can protect themselves in the event of an invasion. And as this video shows, people forcing their way through Texas National Guardsmen and into the interior of the United States, I kind of see this.
Fits the bill.
I see this as an invasion.
Now, others, Iowa's trying to
Right.
do another bill like this one, and I think 25 governors have sent help for the Texas border.
Sure.
What if all those other states tried to pass similar laws like Texas and just jammed up the courts, and finally the justices are like, okay, because one state here or there, I think when Nikki Haley was governor of South Carolina, she tried to do an immigration bill and it got overturned.
And Obama sued her,
Yes.
and she won.
And then I think a while back Arizona tried to do one. So you got one here or there, but if you have 25 going at the same time, maybe that would send a message.
Right. I mean, there's obviously a strength in numbers in doing that, and unfortunately, one progressive illegal immigrant advocacy group stops everything by doing a single lawsuit, and honestly, oftentimes people try and pick which appeals court to go to. The Ninth Circuit is notoriously left-leaning, and so a lot of times people definitely want to, if it's a progressive lawsuit, they definitely want to be in the Ninth Circuit so they can, at least go through two of the three hurdles in order to get stuff done or stopped. But that was one of the big things that the Trump administration had, was that all these just ankle-biter lawsuits that were just slowing him down, whatever he was trying to do. And so
That's what I fear with another administration. So he needs to have all of his people in place, ready to go. Anything he wants to act, pretty much typed up, just ready for signature.
Right. Anyway, this has been in the news. I know it has, but we just wanted to give a little bit of context of why this is yo-yoing and what SB4 actually is. And with this surge or invasion of 300 male migrants just bum rushing the border and bowling over the National Guard, thank God there was another wall. There was defense in depth that Texas is doing, and we wanted to bring this to you. This is a problem. This is a problem, and if MSNBC, the ladies there that were joking about people being concerned about immigration, it is a problem. It's the number one issue after the economy, and people need to start paying attention to it. So thank you so much for watching Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.